Thane had always known the mountains better than any map could describe. Every cliff, every hidden path, every rushing stream was etched into his mind. The rugged peaks of this distant planet had become his home, a place where humans rarely ventured, and even fewer survived. Years of solitude had honed his senses. He could hear a pebble tumble hundreds of meters below, or sense the change in wind that meant a storm was forming. The sun was dipping low, casting long orange shadows across the jagged landscape. Thane stood on a narrow ledge, scanning the valley below with his worn binoculars. Smoke from a distant geyser curled into the sky, mingling with the violet clouds that the planet's atmosphere always seemed to create at dusk. He had lived here for over a decade, far from the crowded colonies, finding comfort in the quiet. Yet, even in solitude, his curiosity was never fully satisfied. Today, something unusual caught his eye. At first, it was a faint glimmer atop a crumbling structure, half buried in the mountainside. A building he had passed many times, but had never examined closely. Its roof was jagged, broken in several places, and it had seemed abandoned, like all the ruins scattered across these peaks. But now, a strange shimmer reflected the last rays of the sun. Something unnatural. Thane felt a twinge of excitement. He had encountered alien artifacts before, small, dormant devices, remnants of civilizations long gone, but he had never seen anything like this. He adjusted his binoculars, squinting. There, hovering slightly above the roof, was a figure. A woman. She appeared to be suspended in mid-air, her body perfectly still, glowing faintly as if encased in a transparent bubble. Thane's heart raced. It was impossible. The air currents here were strong. Nothing could hover against the wind like that. And yet, there she was, her long blonde hair catching the last light, flowing gently as if stirred by a breeze that didn't exist. Then he noticed the scorch marks. Across the roof, burned deep into the metal surface, were words, "Apache lover." He blinked, rubbed his eyes, and looked again. No matter how many times he shifted his gaze, the words remained. They were not graffiti. They seemed deliberate, precise. Someone or something had taken care to etch them into this abandoned building. Thane had spent years surviving in this harsh world. He had seen strange creatures, survived collapsing cliffs, crossed deadly canyons, and navigated storms that would have swallowed most humans. But nothing prepared him for this. He set down his binoculars and climbed cautiously toward the outpost. The path was narrow, flanked by jagged rocks, and the wind threatened to throw him off balance. Still, the sight of the hovering woman drove him forward. He couldn't explain why, but something inside him insisted he must see this closer. By the time he reached the outpost, the sun had dipped fully behind the peaks, leaving a soft twilight in the valley. The air was cooler here, carrying the faint scent of ozone and something else he couldn't name. The building was older than anything he had encountered. Its walls cracked and corroded, yet the scorch marks glowed faintly in the dim light, a soft amber shimmer that pulsed gently like a heartbeat. Thane approached slowly, every step measured. He reached out, half expecting the ground beneath him to give way. But it was solid. The energy field around the woman was faintly visible now, like heat waves rising from hot metal. He couldn't touch her directly, but he could sense life. She was alive. "Who are you?" he whispered, more to himself than expecting an answer. His voice seemed loud in the quiet mountains. The woman didn't move. She didn't speak. She simply hovered, serene and silent, as if waiting for something. Thane circled the building, looking for any clue, any mechanism, anything that could explain this impossible situation. There were alien symbols etched faintly into the metal beside the scorch marks, delicate and intricate. He recognized some shapes from devices he had scavenged over the years, though he couldn't read the full meaning. They seemed to be warnings or instructions. Perhaps both. He crouched near a broken doorway and studied the ground. Strange footprints, unlike any animal or human he had seen, led up to the building but stopped abruptly. The woman had not walked here. She had appeared. That much was clear. Thane sat back on his heels, letting the chill of the evening seep into him. His mind raced. Why was she here? Who or what was Apache Lover? And how had she come to hover above a ruined building in the middle of the mountains, far from anyone who could possibly see her? He had a choice. He could leave, return to his cabin, and dismiss it all as a hallucination, a trick of the light, or the exhaustion of too many solitary days. But he knew he couldn't, not with something like this. His curiosity was too strong, and more than that, he felt responsible. Thane had survived alone for years, yes, but he had never encountered anyone who needed help like this. Whoever or whatever she was in a state that required caution and care. He had to try. He searched the building, looking for any tool or device that might allow him to interact with the energy field safely. The interior was dark and dusty. Broken machinery lined the walls, cables hanging loose like vines in a jungle. He found a control panel, mostly intact but corroded, and carefully cleaned it with a cloth he always carried for emergencies. Hours passed as he studied the alien device, some buttons still lit faintly when pressed. He tested the systems slowly, deliberately, trying to see if any control would release the woman from her stasis without harming her. The first attempt failed, emitting only a low hum and a brief flicker of the energy field. Thane didn't give up. He had survived impossible odds before, and he would survive this challenge too. He began taking careful notes, drawing the symbols, sketching the scorch marks, and cross-referencing with every piece of alien technology he had encountered in the past decade. Night fell completely, and the stars emerged like scattered diamonds across the black sky. Thane lit a small fire for warmth, keeping the woman in his sight. She remained still, serene, almost statuesque. Yet he could feel her life force pulsing faintly through the energy field. He thought about the humans who had come before him, the colonists who had abandoned this region long ago, the strange creatures that had once roamed these peaks, and he realized that this woman might be the first living human or near-human he had encountered in years. And if she wasn't entirely human, that only made the discovery more remarkable. Thane lay back on a rock near the fire, exhausted but restless. Sleep eluded him as his mind raced with questions and theories. Perhaps she was a survivor from a forgotten colony. Perhaps she was part of an experiment, sent here for reasons he could not yet understand. The words, Apache Lover, repeated in his mind, a riddle he could not solve. As the cold night deepened, Thane made a silent vow. He would not leave her here, not while there was a chance to understand her purpose. He would uncover the secret of the outpost, the energy field, and the words scorched into the roof. The mountains were vast and lonely. But tonight, Thane felt a spark of something he had not felt in years: anticipation. For the first time in a long while, he was not just surviving. He was chasing a mystery, and perhaps, in solving it, he would discover something even more important. Something that could change his life, and maybe the life of all humanity. Forever. The woman floated silently above the roof, unaware or unafraid, while Thane stared at her, the firelight reflecting in his eyes. Somewhere in the distance, an owl-like creature called out, echoing across the valley. The mountains seemed alive, aware, and perhaps watching. And for the first time in years, Thane felt that he was not truly alone. The night stretched long and quiet, filled with questions and possibilities. And Thane, the solitary mountain man, prepared for whatever the dawn would bring. The first light of dawn crept over the jagged mountain peaks, casting pale gold over the valley. Thane awoke to the crisp chill of morning air. Wrapped in his worn blanket, his fire had burned low during the night, leaving only a faint glow and a bed of embers. He stirred, careful not to disturb the stillness of the mountains. Above the crumbling roof of the outpost, the woman hovered in her energy field, motionless as if she were part of the dawn itself. Thane watched her closely. He had spent the night thinking, planning, and wondering. Who was she? How had she come to be here? And most importantly, what did Apache Lover mean? He rose and stretched, muscles stiff from sleeping on the cold rock. Then he gathered his tools and approached the outpost cautiously. He had spent hours the previous night inspecting the strange control panel, pressing buttons, and studying alien symbols, but he had learned very little. The device hummed faintly now, almost as if alive, responsive to his presence. Thane crouched near the roof and studied the energy field. He noticed that the shimmer around her seemed to pulse in rhythm with his own heartbeat. It was subtle, barely noticeable, but it gave him hope. The field wasn't permanent. There was a way to release her. He ran his fingers over the etched scorch marks again, tracing the letters with care. "Apache lover," he whispered. The words seemed deliberate, almost ceremonial. They weren't threats. They were instructions or maybe a key. Whoever had placed her here had meant for someone to find her. And Thane had. "Okay," he muttered to himself. "Let's figure this out." Thane worked slowly, testing every button and switch on the alien control panel. He didn't want to harm her, not in the slightest. Every adjustment caused the energy field to flicker, ripple, or hum in response. After several hours, he noticed a pattern. When he touched certain symbols in a specific order, the field's glow changed. It dimmed slightly, then brightened again, as if acknowledging his actions. Excited, Thane continued his experiments carefully. He realized that the device wasn't just a prison, it was a stasis field designed to protect her. Perhaps she had been here for years, or even decades, and the field had preserved her from harm. Finally, late in the morning, after what felt like an eternity, the shimmer around her became fragile, almost like a bubble about to pop. Thane held his breath. He pressed one last sequence of symbols, repeating it slowly, deliberately. The field quivered, then dissolved in a soft hum, like the sigh of the mountain wind. The woman remained suspended for a moment, then slowly lowered herself onto the roof. She was lightweight, almost ethereal, but clearly alive. Her eyes fluttered open, revealing a pale blue gaze that seemed to take in everything at once. She looked around the mountains, then finally focused on Thane. Thane froze, unsure whether to speak. The woman's expression was calm, curious, and intelligent. There was no fear, no anger, only quiet awareness. "Who are you?" Thane asked gently. The woman tilted her head slightly, as if hearing his words for the first time. She spoke, her voice melodic and soft, yet clear. "I am Ilara." Thane blinked. "Ilara? Okay. Where? How did you get here?" Ilara's eyes scanned the ruins around her, and then she looked back at him. "I was placed here, for preservation, long ago." Her tone was calm, almost distant, as though the passage of time had dulled the urgency of her words. Thane studied her carefully. She was human in appearance, but there was something different. The energy field had left faint traces on her skin, and her eyes seemed to hold knowledge far beyond any normal human. His curiosity deepened. "What does Apache lover mean?" he asked. "Who put you here?" Ilara's gaze shifted to the scorch marks on the roof. "The words are a marker," she said slowly. "A signal for those who are capable of understanding. They were meant to guide the finder, to awaken what is needed." Quote. Thane frowned. "Awaken what?" "The knowledge of the Apaches," Ilara replied. "They were a people who existed long before humans spread across this galaxy. They were intelligent, strong, and different. Some say they were the first humans. Some say they were something else entirely. I was sent to study them, to learn, to preserve their legacy." Thane listened, captivated. He had scavenged alien artifacts for years, had studied abandoned colonies and crashed starships. But he had never encountered someone like Ilara, someone who was human or nearly human but carried the knowledge of a lost civilization. "And you have been here all this time?" he asked. "Yes," Ilara said softly. "Until now. I was meant to wait for one who could understand." Thane swallowed. The mountains suddenly felt even more vast and empty than before. He had survived storms, predators, and isolation, but nothing had prepared him for this. He had found a person, a living connection to the past. "You understand what this means?" she asked, sensing his thoughts. I think I'm supposed to help, Thane said cautiously. I don't know how, but I can try. Ilara studied him for a long moment. Then she smiled faintly. You are different, she said. You have survived. You have endured. That is why you were chosen. Thane felt a strange warmth in his chest. Chosen? He had never thought of himself as special. He had lived alone, far from society, simply surviving day by day. But now, he realized that his skills, his patience, his perseverance, they mattered. In this moment, they mattered more than he could ever have imagined. They spent the rest of the morning exploring the outpost together. Ilara pointed out symbols and mechanisms, explaining in simple terms what she understood of the alien technology. Thane absorbed every detail, noting connections, patterns, and strange anomalies. The control panel, she explained, was part of a network left by the Apaches, a system designed to protect knowledge, preserve individuals, and guide those who could learn. The Apaches were careful, she said. They hid their wisdom in ways that only someone capable of understanding could access. You are one of those people. Thane didn't fully understand yet, but he felt a sense of purpose. He had always survived for himself, for the quiet satisfaction of living in the mountains. But now, he realized, survival was not enough. Knowledge, discovery, and the preservation of history were equally important. As the sun rose higher, illuminating the peaks and valleys around them, Thane and Ilara climbed to the edge of the roof to look over the mountains. Below, the valley stretched endlessly, dotted with ruins, cliffs, and hidden paths. I've spent years alone, Thane admitted quietly. I thought I knew this land. But now, there's so much I don't know. Ilara nodded. The world is larger than you can imagine. The Apaches understood things that humans are only beginning to grasp. But you have the ability to learn, to adapt. That is rare. Thane smiled faintly. I guess I'll have to do more than survive now. Huh? Yes, Ilara replied. You must help preserve what remains. The knowledge, the history. It is important, more important than survival alone. For the first time in years, Thane felt a sense of excitement he had never experienced in isolation. The mountains were still harsh, the paths still treacherous. But now, there was a purpose. The quiet life of solitude had been replaced by a mission, a challenge that would test his skills in ways he had never imagined. They spent the rest of the day cataloging symbols, examining devices, and mapping the outpost. Ilara explained the patterns she recognized, while Thane used his survival skills to navigate the building safely. Every discovery led to more questions. Every question led to more possibilities. As night fell, Thane built a fire near the outpost again, and Ilara settled beside it. She looked up at the stars, her expression calm but thoughtful. The Apaches believed the stars held answers, she said softly. They mapped the heavens and left instructions hidden among the mountains. It is a puzzle, and now you are part of it. Thane stared into the fire, letting the warmth seep into his bones. He had always been alone, but now he realized that the universe was larger, filled with mysteries that required more than strength or endurance to solve. It required intelligence, patience, and courage, the qualities that humans, in their best moments, could possess in abundance. The night stretched long and quiet, but for Thane, sleep was no longer urgent. Questions filled his mind. Possibilities stirred his imagination. And for the first time, he felt the weight of responsibility and the thrill of discovery. Ilara drifted into a light sleep beside him, her presence both comforting and inspiring. Thane watched the stars, thinking about the mountains, the ruins, and the woman who had appeared as if from nowhere. Tomorrow, he knew, they would begin the real work, the mystery of the Apaches, the meaning of Apache lover, and the secrets hidden in the mountains would demand all their effort, intelligence, and courage. But for now, In the quiet glow of the fire and under the endless stars, Thane understood something profound. He was no longer just a solitary mountain man. He was a guardian of knowledge, a seeker of truths, and part of something far greater than himself. And the mountains, ancient and eternal, seemed to acknowledge him, as if watching, waiting, and welcoming the dawn of a new chapter. The next morning, the mountains were wrapped in a soft mist. Thane woke before dawn, the cold air biting at his skin, and looked toward the outpost. Alara was already awake, standing at the edge of the roof and scanning the distant peaks. Her hair caught the faint morning light, and Thane felt a sense of awe. She was calm, but there was a quiet intensity in her gaze. "We should begin," she said, her voice steady. "There is much to uncover, and little time." Thane nodded. The previous day's discoveries had given him purpose, but they had also raised more questions. The energy field that had held Alara, the scorch marks reading Apache lover, and the symbols scattered throughout the outpost, each element hinted at a larger story, one that neither of them fully understood. They entered the main chamber of the outpost together. Broken machinery lined the walls, and cables dangled like roots from the ceiling. Dust covered every surface, but strange glyphs and patterns glowed faintly in the dim light. Alara moved with grace, touching certain symbols that pulsed softly under her fingertips. "These marks are keys," she explained. "They store information." The Apaches encoded their knowledge into patterns, not words. Only someone who understands can access it. Thane leaned close to watch. "So, you mean they were hiding their knowledge in plain sight?" "Yes," Alara said. "But it is more than hiding, it is protection. Only those worthy can unlock it." Thane nodded. He had always prided himself on being observant, patient, and clever. Perhaps, in this desolate place, these qualities mattered more than brute strength. He felt a growing sense of determination. They moved through the outpost carefully, exploring corridors and staircases that led to collapsed rooms. Some areas were dangerous, metal beams hung precariously, and the floor gave way in places. Thane used his survival skills to navigate safely, and Alara followed, observing his methods with quiet approval. In one room, they discovered a large console, mostly intact, with a series of glowing panels. Alara traced her fingers over the symbols. "This is a repository," she said. "It holds the records of the Apaches, their history, their achievements, and their warnings." Thane examined the panels. They responded to touch, lighting up in sequence as he and Alara pressed the correct symbols. A faint hum filled the room, and a holographic projection flickered to life. It displayed landscapes, star maps, and figures of beings who resembled humans, but with subtle differences: taller, more symmetrical, with eyes that seemed unusually bright. "The Apaches," Alara said softly. "They were humans, yes, but more advanced. They understood the world differently. They could communicate without words, see patterns in nature that others could not. Their society lasted for centuries before it ended." Thane studied the projections, fascinated. Cities of shining towers, forests intertwined with machinery, and beings moving with effortless precision. It was unlike anything he had imagined. Humanity, he realized, had barely scratched the surface of what was possible. "Why did they disappear?" he asked. Ilara's expression grew somber. Their knowledge became a target. Other civilizations feared them. Wars were fought. Entire cities were destroyed. The Apaches tried to preserve their culture through these outposts, hiding information and individuals like me. That is why I was here, waiting. Thane felt a chill. He had faced danger in the mountains before: storms, predators, treacherous cliffs. But nothing compared to the thought of an entire civilization wiped out. And yet, the Apaches had left behind a trail, a path for someone capable of understanding. He looked at Alara. Somehow, together, they had found it. They spent hours exploring the repository. Alara guided him through the symbols, explaining patterns and sequences. Each discovery revealed more about the Apache's understanding of science, engineering, and even psychic abilities. Thane was amazed at their ingenuity. Some devices seemed to manipulate energy directly. Others mapped the stars with incredible precision. "This technology," Thane said, "it's beyond anything humans have." "Yes," Alara agreed. "But you see, it is not about power, it is about understanding." The Apaches believed that knowledge should guide, not dominate. As they worked, Thane noticed that the energy field that had held Alara was mirrored in the room itself. Faint lines of power traced the walls, forming a web of energy that connected the panels and consoles. It was alive, responding to their presence and actions. "Do you feel it?" Alara asked. "The energy here. It is like the heartbeat of the past." Thane nodded. "It feels aware, like it knows we are here." Alara smiled faintly. "Exactly. The Apaches left more than machines and records, they left guardians. This outpost is alive, in its own way. It will test those who enter, and only those who understand can access the knowledge." They continued their work, piecing together fragments of history. Maps of distant worlds hinted at where the Apaches had lived and explored. Logs of communication suggested alliances and conflicts with other civilizations. Thane realized that humanity's story was just one thread in a larger tapestry. And the Apaches had been one of its brightest strands. Hours passed, and the sun climbed high in the sky. Thane and Alara took a break on the roof, overlooking the mountains. The valley below seemed peaceful, unaware of the secrets hidden within the ruins. "You've survived alone for a long time," Alara said, watching him closely. "And yet, you understand. You see patterns, notice details, and make connections. That is why you were chosen." "Markers," Thane shrugged. "I don't feel special. I've just paid attention. Survived. That's all." "No," Alara said firmly. "It is more than survival. It is curiosity, patience, and the willingness to face the unknown. Those qualities are rare." Thane looked at her, feeling a strange pride. For years, he had thought of himself as a simple mountain man, capable only of surviving, but now he realized that his skills mattered in ways he had never imagined. He had been prepared for this challenge all along. As the day progressed, they discovered more rooms filled with artifacts and devices. Some were clearly meant for study, mechanical tools, holographic projectors, and star charts. Others were more mysterious, pulsing with energy that neither of them fully understood. Thane's curiosity grew with each discovery, and Alara guided him patiently, explaining what she could. In one chamber, they found a large sphere, its surface covered in intricate carvings. It hummed faintly, resonating with the energy in the building. When Thane touched it, the carvings lit up, displaying star systems, planets, and constellations he had never seen. "This is a map," Alara said, "a record of the Apache's travels and explorations. They understood the cosmos in ways humans are only beginning to learn. And they left it here, for those who could appreciate it." Thane traced the glowing lines, feeling a sense of awe. The universe suddenly felt larger, more intricate, and more alive than he had ever imagined. Humanity had survived, yes, but the Apaches had thrived, leaving a legacy that might yet guide the future. As night fell, Thane and Alara built a small fire inside the outpost for warmth. They sat together, reviewing their discoveries and planning the next day's exploration. Every artifact, every symbol, every piece of knowledge was a step closer to understanding the Apaches, and perhaps unlocking the hidden potential of humanity itself. Thane looked at Alara, her eyes reflecting the firelight, and felt a growing respect. She was not just a guide. She was a bridge between the past and the future. Together, they could uncover truths long forgotten, and perhaps shape a destiny that no human had imagined. The mountains outside were quiet, but Thane sensed movement not of creatures, but of history itself. The outpost was alive with echoes of the past, and they were listening. He leaned back, letting the fire warm his tired muscles, and realized something important. The journey had only just begun. The Apache's legacy was vast, their knowledge immense, and the challenges ahead would test every skill he possessed. But he felt ready. With Ilara by his side, he was no longer just a solitary mountain man. He was part of something larger, something that could change the course of human history. And as the stars emerged above the peaks, shining faintly through the mountain mist, Thane felt a thrill he had never known. Adventure, discovery, and purpose stretched out before him, vast, unknown, and waiting. The mountains held their secrets still, but for the first time, Thane felt that they were not insurmountable. With patience, courage, and curiosity, he and Ilara could uncover the truths hidden for centuries. The past was awakening, and they were ready to face it. The following morning, the mist still clung to the mountains, wrapping the peaks in a ghostly veil. Thane and Ilara awoke with the sun, their fire still smoldering from the night before. Today, they had decided, they would explore deeper into the outpost, seeking the central chamber that Ilara believed held the most important Apache knowledge. "This part of the building has not been touched for centuries," Ilara said, her eyes scanning the corridor ahead. "The Apaches built traps and protections. They wanted only the worthy to access what they left behind." Thane adjusted his backpack, filled with tools, maps, and a few basic supplies. He had always survived in the mountains, relying on skill and caution. But he realized this challenge was different. It was not about predators or storms. It was about intelligence, intuition, and courage. He was ready. They moved quietly through the narrow corridors, the walls pulsing faintly with the same energy that had held Ilara in stasis. The symbols etched into the metal seemed to react to their presence, glowing brighter as they passed. Thane felt a strange hum under his feet, a vibration that ran through the floor like a heartbeat. The outpost itself seemed alive, aware, and observant. "This energy," Thane said, "it's like the building is watching us." "Yes," Ilara replied. "It is. The Apaches designed it this way. Only those who respect the knowledge and act carefully can proceed." They entered a chamber filled with rows of consoles, holographic projectors, and strange crystalline structures. The room was immense. Its ceiling lost in shadows, symbols etched into the walls formed patterns that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. Ilara approached a console and touched the glowing symbols. The room hummed louder, and the holographic projection of a star map appeared. The lights flickered, and the floor beneath them vibrated. Thane instinctively stepped back. "What just happened?" "The system is activating," Ilara explained. "It is a test. The Apaches built this to protect their knowledge. If we make a mistake, it may lock us out, or respond defensively." Thane's eyes narrowed. "Defensively?" Ilara nodded. "We must proceed carefully. The building can sense us, but it does not wish us harm if we are cautious. It is a guardian, not a predator." They moved together, pressing symbols in sequence, observing the holographic patterns. Each correct sequence caused the lights to brighten, the hum to steady, and the crystalline structures to pulse with energy. Each mistake caused a faint shock to ripple through the floor, startling but harmless. Hours passed as they worked through the chamber, piecing together the sequences and deciphering the symbols. Thane's skills in observation and patience proved invaluable. He noticed subtle differences in the glowing symbols, differences that would have gone unnoticed by anyone else. Ilara guided him, explaining the meanings of certain glyphs, while Thane applied logic and intuition to predict the correct sequences. Suddenly, the floor beneath them shifted. Panels slid aside, revealing a spiral staircase descending into darkness. A soft blue light emanated from below. "This is it," Ilara said softly. "The central chamber. The heart of the outpost." Thane glanced down the staircase. Shadows stretched deep into the unknown. "Looks like the real challenge begins now." Free. They descended carefully, every step deliberate. The air grew cooler, carrying the faint scent of ozone and something metallic. The hum of energy was stronger here, resonating through their bones. The staircase ended in a large chamber filled with floating platforms, energy barriers, and intricate mechanisms. It was unlike anything Thane had seen. The Apaches left protections, Alara explained. Some are physical, some are mental. We must move together, think carefully, and trust our instincts. Thane nodded. He felt a thrill of excitement. This was not just survival, it was a test of mind and skill. Humans, he realized, had the ability to adapt, to learn, and to overcome challenges that seemed impossible. That was their strength. The first platform hovered over a pit of softly glowing crystals. As they stepped onto it, energy barriers formed around them, displaying symbols that required attention and interpretation. Thane studied the patterns carefully. "We need to press these in the right order," he said, pointing. "It's like a puzzle." Alara followed his instructions, and together they manipulated the panels. The energy barriers pulsed, testing their timing and coordination. One mistake sent a harmless but startling jolt through the platform. They laughed briefly, tension easing, before focusing again. Step by step, they navigated the floating platforms, deciphering patterns, activating panels, and moving with precise coordination. Thane marveled at the ingenuity of the Apaches. Every mechanism required observation, logic, and attention to detail. Their knowledge had been protected not by force, but by intelligence, an invitation for the worthy to learn and succeed. As they reached the far end of the chamber, a larger energy field activated, forming a dome around them. Inside, a crystalline console floated, pulsing with soft blue light. The walls around it displayed holographic images of the Apache civilization, cities in harmony with nature, beings communicating through gestures and thought, and technology that blended seamlessly with the world. "This is it," Alara whispered, "the heart of their knowledge." Thane stepped closer, feeling a hum of energy under his hands. The console responded to their presence, displaying a series of complex symbols. Alara touched one, and the holographic images shifted, revealing instructions and star maps, charts of energy flow, and diagrams of advanced machines. "They left their history, their science, their guidance," Alara said softly. "And it is all here for us to learn." Thane felt a sense of awe. The Apaches had preserved their civilization not in books or records, but in a living system that required intelligence, patience, and courage to unlock. This knowledge was a gift but also a responsibility. Suddenly, a section of the chamber shifted. Platforms moved, barriers formed, and a low hum resonated through the walls. The system was testing them, reacting to their progress. "They are watching," Alara said. "The outpost senses us. It wants to see if we are worthy." Thane squared his shoulders. "Then we'll show them." Together, they solved the next series of puzzles, navigating moving platforms, activating energy panels, and coordinating their movements with precision. Every success caused the energy to pulse in a harmonious rhythm, guiding them forward. Every mistake taught them a lesson, reinforcing patience and observation. Hours passed, and they reached the final platform. The crystalline console floated before them, larger and brighter than before. Symbols glowed across its surface, representing knowledge beyond comprehension. Alara placed her hand on the console. "This is the culmination of everything the Apaches preserved. Their understanding of the universe, their science, and their hope for the future." Thane joined her, touching the console lightly. A surge of energy pulsed through him, not harmful, but invigorating. He saw images, patterns, and ideas that expanded his understanding of the world. The Apaches had left behind more than knowledge. They had left a map for human potential. "They trusted us," Thane said, awed. "They wanted someone to learn, not just survive." "Yes," Alara replied. "And you have proven worthy. Humans have the ability to adapt, to think, to endure, and now, perhaps to rise to the challenge they left behind." The chamber hummed softly as they absorbed the information, the platforms stabilizing, the barriers dissipating. The hidden threat had not been violent or destructive, it had been a test of intelligence, courage, and cooperation, and Thane and Alara had passed. As they exited the chamber, Thane felt a sense of accomplishment unlike any he had experienced in the mountains. They had uncovered secrets, solved ancient puzzles, and navigated a system that had challenged them at every turn. Outside, the mountains were calm, bathed in the warm light of the late afternoon sun. Thane looked at Alara, feeling a deep respect for her knowledge and guidance. Together, they had faced the hidden threat and emerged stronger, more confident, and more aware of the vast potential that lay ahead. "The mountains," Thane said quietly. "They're more alive than I ever imagined. And this outpost, it's more incredible than anything I've seen." Alara nodded. The Apaches believed that knowledge should be protected until the right moment. And now, that moment is here. Humans are ready to learn, to grow, to reach farther than we ever could alone. Thane smiled faintly. "Then let's see how far we can go." The mountains stretched endlessly before them, filled with hidden paths, ancient secrets, and mysteries waiting to be uncovered. And for the first time, Thane realized that he was not just surviving in this world, he was part of something greater, something that could shape the future of humanity. The hidden threat had tested them, but it had also prepared them. And together, Thane and Alara were ready to face whatever the mountains and the universe would reveal next. The mountains were quiet as dawn broke, painting the valley below in shades of gold and violet. Thane awoke first, the cold morning air biting at his skin. The previous day's challenges had left him exhausted, but there was no time to linger. Today, they would reach the final chamber, the heart of the outpost, and unlock the ultimate secrets of the Apaches. Alara stood at the edge of the roof, her pale hair catching the morning light. "Are you ready?" she asked. Thane nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be." He felt a thrill of anticipation. They had survived the outpost's hidden threats, deciphered its symbols, and navigated its challenges. Now, they would uncover what the Apaches had left behind, not just knowledge, but a legacy. They entered the central corridor, moving carefully. The walls pulsed faintly, a subtle energy guiding their path. Symbols etched into the metal shifted slightly as they passed, responding to their presence. The outpost was alive, observing, testing, and guiding. "This is the final path," Alara said softly. "The Apaches stored their most important discoveries here. Their history, their technology, and their hope for the future." Thane's heart raced. He had always lived a simple life, focused on survival in the mountains. But now, standing here with Alara, he felt part of something larger. This was not just about knowledge, it was about the destiny of humanity itself. The chamber opened into a vast room, its ceiling lost in shadows. Floating platforms hovered above the ground, connected by streams of glowing energy. At the center of the room, a massive crystalline structure pulsed with light, radiating warmth and power. "This is it," Alara whispered. "The heart of the outpost." Thane approached cautiously, feeling the hum of energy beneath his feet. The crystal seemed alive, resonating with the presence of both of them. He reached out, and as his hand touched the surface, the room transformed. Holographic images filled the space, showing cities of light, beings communicating through thought, and patterns of energy that flowed through the universe like rivers. "These are the Apaches," Alara said, her voice full of awe. "Not just humans, but pioneers. They understood the universe in ways we are only beginning to grasp. They created technology to harness energy, navigate the stars, and preserve life itself. And they left it all here for someone capable of learning." Thane stared at the projections, amazed. The images were beautiful, intricate, and alive. He could see the cities, the machines, and the people who had once walked the galaxy. It was more than history, it was a map of potential, a guide for those willing to understand. "They wanted to share this knowledge," Alara continued, "but only with those who are ready. Only with those who respect it, who will use it wisely." Thane nodded. He felt a deep sense of responsibility. The Apaches had entrusted humanity with a gift, and it was now their duty to honor it. As they explored the chamber, they discovered records of the Apache's achievements. Devices capable of manipulating energy, star charts showing unexplored worlds, and instructions for sustainable technology that harmonized with nature. Every discovery filled Thane with wonder, but also with determination. This was knowledge that could change the course of humanity. Alara guided him to a section of the crystal that displayed a map of the galaxy. These are worlds the Apaches explored. Some are uninhabited. Some may contain remnants of civilizations they interacted with. Their knowledge is scattered, but it can be pieced together. Thane traced his finger along the glowing lines. So, humanity could reach these worlds, learn from them, and continue where the Apaches left off? Yes, Alara said, if we are willing to try. The two of them spent hours exploring the crystal, recording the symbols, deciphering the holograms, and mapping the knowledge into forms they could understand. Every discovery was a step closer to unlocking the Apache's full legacy. As the sun climbed higher, Thane paused to look around the chamber. He realized something profound. The outpost had not just tested them, it had prepared them. Every puzzle, every sequence, every trial had strengthened their minds, honed their skills, and proven that humans were capable of understanding what once seemed impossible. You've done well, Alara said, observing him. And we have honored that trust. Humans have potential, Thane. More than we realize. Thane smiled faintly. I never imagined I'd be part of something like this. I've spent my life surviving alone, thinking that was enough. But now, I see there's more to it. We can do more than survive. We can learn, explore, and grow. Yes, Alara replied, and that is the true legacy of the Apaches. Not their technology, not their cities, not even their knowledge, but the hope that others could continue, improve, and reach farther than they ever could alone. Thane felt a swell of pride and purpose. For years, he had lived as a solitary mountain man, navigating cliffs and valleys in isolation. But now, he realized, survival was only the beginning. Humanity had the ability to endure, yes, but also to innovate, to explore, and to shape the future. Together, they worked late into the afternoon, documenting every discovery, recording every detail, and preparing a plan for sharing this knowledge with the rest of humanity. Thane's survival skills complemented Alara's understanding of the Apache's technology perfectly. Each challenge they encountered was met with ingenuity, patience, and teamwork. Finally, as evening fell, they stepped back from the crystal. The chamber was quiet, filled only with the soft hum of energy and the faint glow of holographic symbols. Thane looked at Alara, gratitude and awe in his eyes. You've changed my life, he said quietly. I came here to survive, but now, I feel like we're building something bigger, something that could last far beyond us. Alara smiled. The Apaches believed in potential. They left this for those willing to rise to the challenge. And now, it is ours to continue. We can learn from the past and shape the future. Humans have that power. Thane nodded. The mountains around them, ancient and vast, seemed to echo her words. They had faced danger, uncertainty, and the unknown, and had emerged stronger, wiser, and ready for what lay ahead. The journey back through the outpost was quiet but filled with purpose. Every room, every corridor, every symbol now held meaning. Thane and Alara moved with confidence, knowing they had unlocked something extraordinary. Outside, the sun set over the peaks, painting the mountains in orange, pink, and violet. The valley below was peaceful. Unaware of the secrets it held, Thane stood on a rock, watching the horizon. He felt the weight of responsibility. Yes, but also the thrill of possibility. Do you think humanity is ready? He asked softly. Alara looked at him, her eyes reflecting the last rays of sunlight. They will be. They have to be. Knowledge like this is not meant to be hoarded. It is meant to guide, to inspire, and to elevate. And now, They have a path. Thane nodded, a quiet determination settling in his chest. The Apaches had trusted them with a legacy spanning centuries. It was a gift, but also a challenge. Humans were no longer alone in the universe. They had the chance to reach farther, think bigger, and achieve more than ever before. As night fell and stars blanketed the sky, Thane and Alara made a final survey of the outpost. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of distant forests and mountain winds. The energy of the outpost pulsed faintly beneath their feet, as if acknowledging their success. Thane realized something important. The mountains were more than a home. They were a classroom, a test, and a doorway to possibilities beyond imagination. And now, with the Apache's knowledge, humanity had the chance to step through that doorway. Alara placed her hand lightly on his shoulder. The journey has only just begun. The mountains have tested us, the outpost has guided us, and now it is time for humanity to learn, to grow, and to rise. Thane took a deep breath, feeling the weight of history and the promise of the future. He had come to the mountains alone, seeking solitude and survival, but he would leave them as something more. A guardian of knowledge, a seeker of truth, and a witness to the potential of humanity. Together, they gazed at the stars, imagining worlds waiting to be explored, mysteries waiting to be uncovered, and a legacy that could shape the course of history. For Thane, the mountains were no longer just a place of isolation. They were the beginning of a journey, one that humanity could take with courage, intelligence, and hope. And under the endless sky, with the Apache's legacy shining softly in the crystalline heart of the outpost, Thane knew one thing for certain. The future of humanity had just begun.